welcome everyone. It's a pleasure to host Shobaji today, and it was a greater pleasure going through her very wonderful book, the cover of which you can see on my background. It's Food and Faith. She calls it a pilgrim's journey through India, and she also, in her very heartfelt, soulfully written preface, she calls it a skeptical seeker's journey through India. Uh, Reading the book has been a very joyful experience, so I would recommend everyone among you to buy a copy and go through
Thank you.
her journey. That's
Thank
something
you.
very soulful. So more about our author, Shobha Narayan, has written about food and faith over 2 decades. She was the Hinduism columnist for BeliefNet and won the James Beard MFK Fisher Award for distinguished food writing. She has been a correspondent for Gourmet magazine and has written about culture, food, and faith in her columns and essays for Hindustan Times and the National Abu Dhabi. Food and Faith, the current book about which we are going to discuss with her, brings together two of Shobhaji's passions, spirituality and food. So you can please visit her website, shobanarayan.com, for more information about her. I'm sure there are a lot of things to learn from her journey. So Shobhaji, welcome again. I loved reading the book, Food
Thank you.
and Faith, and I just loved the way you so seamlessly correlated between various aspects of our religion with that personal, very healthy skeptical questions, if I may ask, and relate it, to the prasadam, the naivedyam, which forms its own signature for each of the pilgrim centers. So do share with our viewers a bit about your personal journey, from being that rebellious skeptic to a seeker. Interestingly, both are the, both phases are something which I could deeply connect with. I could understand the rebellious self also, and I could so much understand when you said, the way your mother dragged you to temples, you are dragging your children
Yes.
to temples.
Yes.
And so I could relate to both the sides. So please share a bit about your personal journey.
Thank you, Sai Swarupa, and may I compliment your background. Thank you for putting up my book as well. It's so nice of you.
It's a pleasure.
So, like you, I grew up in like you said, I grew up in a devout Hindu family, which I think for many of us, South Indians particularly, involves visiting temples on all the holy days, for example, Ekadashi or the Shradam or the festivals. And when you are a kid and their grandfather interrupts you in the middle of a cricket game and says, come on, let's go to the temple, I think it's a natural a feeling of why so many, why now, why this. So that was it. But I think the beauty of our temples is that they somehow quietly work their way into your psyche. You visit one, you visit two, you hear the bells, you smell that particular, Hindu temples have a particular smell of that abhisheka, milk and water and honey,
Yes.
all of that. And it becomes part of your subconscious. And I think now the tables have turned where when I want some solace, when I want some peace and calm, I go to temples. So rather than, and then as far as writing the book, Sai Swarupa, I think Hinduism has been approached from many angles. I'm not a scholar. I am a food writer more than Hinduism expert. I'm learning Sanskritam, but I have not read the original text. I'm learning. One of the platforms which I follow quite avidly is your own Indic Academies. They do these seminars and webinars, and they did one on the Puranas recently, which I attended.
Yes.
So Hinduism is still an ocean to me, and I've kept the first foot, as we say in Tamil. But food writing comes easy to me. It's a way of writing about India that seems very approachable and easy to do for me. So this book, I decided I would approach spirituality, which I have started going deeper into from a very earthy, from a very basic, from a very nurturing approach, which is prasadams or prasad, as they say in North India.
So yes, as you say, I'm just reminded of a particular journey in Karnataka. I went with my parents where we started from Bangalore and we just had pulihodre in some very cute little Vishnu temple on the way. I don't exactly remember the name. It's a normal, nice Vishnu temple. And then we had our lunch at Horanadu and then dinner at Dharmasthala, which really felt that was a blessed day, and I could see a lot of the vibes are different when we eat the prasada in the temple, in the premises of the temple. So
Correct.
so if I can ask you about any compelling experiences or aspects about a particular Naivedyam or a temple, and the spiritual connection that you felt through the food, because you have covered a lot of pilgrimage centers, right from Palani with its oldest jam of the world, that's the Palani Panchamritam, to Amritsar, Kashi, and Ajmer, and even Goa's. This one we'll come to that, but in this whole variety of places with their own signature, unique food, what share any of your very compelling experiences for the benefit of me.
So one of the most compelling things about writing this book was as much what I left out as what I included. Like you said, my mother's pilgrim circuit is actually Mukambika temple of Kollur. Yes. So we used to go to Udupi, Mukambika, then Dharmasthala, Sringeri, all of that. And Srirangam, Tirupati Balaji. So I left out his laddu, for example. Tirupati Balaji's laddu is world famous. Yes. And Kerala, many temples have palpayasam as their prasadam. And I chose Ambalapura.
I guess, yes, Ambalapura you have.
Yes. So in a way, it's like an editor choosing what to put in a magazine. This book became as much about which temple should I include. Some of it was geographical, north, south, east, west. Some of it was what called to me. I really wanted to include, for example, a Jain temple, but I could not visit one in time for my deadline. I said, this book is largely Hindu, but of course we have to include the langar of Harmandir Sahib. Yes. So in terms of compelling temples in the book, each of them has their own beauty. And if I may, in one line, I'll tell you about each of them the ones that, yeah. So the beauty of Parani is that he is a very ancient god. I mean, you go to the Indus Valley civilization and you will read about Murukkan, as he was called. And then only he became Murugan and all of the other. And he was a warrior, tribal god. So he was, in fact, he was what we call an indigenous from the earth, from the soil. He came through the folk songs and the people's veneration of them. And so his Panchamritam is very special.
The Mahabharata has a lot of mentions about Skanda, wherever wherever a battle is mentioned and then there is a victor, he's either compared to Indra or Skanda. And in Mahabharata, especially the Mahishasura Mardana episode, it is Skanda who kills Mahishasura and not Durga in this one. And sorry for that digression.
That's okay. Please add to this. And Kashi, of course, we will talk about, because the Kashi is full of prasads of various kinds. Annapurna is my favorite because I like the creation story and the Anna that comes out of her. The Alagar Kovil of Madurai was an accidental journey, but I went to visit Madurai Meenakshi, and the priest there said, Amma, you are writing about prasadam, you go to Alagar Kovil. Better than this prasad is there, because it is an unusual prasadam. He didn't make it that kind of a comparison. So I went there. I had never visited that temple. And I found Alagar Kovil dosai, which is like deep fried vadai, but it's made of urad dal and rice. So that was very special. And it was one of the few temples I visited where there were no crowds. It is a little known temple. Then the Ambalapura Palpaisam is still made with an ancient recipe in the giant urali. And one of the most touching things about the Ambalapura Palpaisam is after cooking, they will go out and they will call Vasudeva, as if imagining that the god is going to come and actually eat their prasadam. So that every day they do this. That is very nice, yes. And then the langar is a phenomenal expression of how you subjugate the ego. You go there to do seva, you wash other people's dishes, then you sit on the ground and you eat, and it's done in vast numbers. So that is also very touching. Udupi, of course, Udupi is Krishna, is Annadatta. People come there to eat, and that's tradition is followed in Dharmasthala as well, which you just mentioned. They give you very humble food, one anna, one saru, and one palya. That's it. And it's so tasty.
That's so tasty and, filling, and basically you don't have any other wanting after eating that. That's something which I felt, especially in the Dharmasthala. I don't remember my visit to Udupi because I was too young.
Yeah. But that saru of Dharmasthala, the rasam they give is so tasty. Yeah. So that would be, I think, a good overview. And my favorite is, it depends on which day you ask, and the person who is asking, it varies. Today, let us go with, the Nepal one, also the prasad that I offered to the Kumari, and the whole village congregated to give. Nepal was once called, the Spartan, one of the cities I visited was called Lalitapura, which I didn't know. Now it's called Patan, but it's called Lalita. And Lalita is one of the most compelling goddesses in Hinduism, because so I liked the rituals during the Dashera festival of Patan. And I will tell you about the prasad there later on. So that would be a very compelling prasad, because there are elements to it that you don't see in India now. You see it, first of all, you see men dressed as goddesses, which you see in Yakshagana, you see in Kathakali and all our old dance forms. But here, Patan is a small and beautiful Nepalese town, and Lalitapura, as I called it. The whole town gathers during Dasera on the particular day, and the men come out dancing as if they are the 10 goddesses, the Dashamahavidyas, and then they sit down. And everybody goes and gives them a leaf with lots of prasad, and then we all eat it. Whoever watches the ritual, we get to eat it. So that was very special, actually.
Thank you so much. That piques my interest, and I'm sure we are making a lot of our audience hungry with our talk.
After the listening, they can go and have dinner.
I know. I just hope I get this lockdown and pandemic goes down soon, so that each of us gets to go to our favorite temple and get our favorite prasadam along with the darshan. So that makes me wonder, Shobhaji. So food, the physical validity or the physical scope of food, it is limited to what is Annamaya Kosha, the self. The self has, just for the benefit of viewers, not that you don't know, but the self is made of these 5 koshas, 5 sheets, and the most, what do you say, the materialistic among them is Annamaya Kosha. Then we go to Pranamaya, then Manas, Manomaya, Jnanamaya, and Vijnanamaya. And the body is called that Annamaya Kosha because it's dependent on food. And our spiritual journey starts by growing out of through these
Mhm.
heats, right? And yet at the same time, the Naivedyam forms such an important part of our puja, our spiritual and ritual, as well as spiritual
Of course,
regime.
yeah.
And when we do that Shodashopachara puja, it's, there's a whole lavish Naivedyam, being offered. And, and each vrata has its own preparation. So, and so much, and so many recipes are just guarded and religiously adhered to. Uh, did you ever happen to wonder about this whole anomaly? At one state, we want to grow out of this bodily
Yeah.
self, and at the other side, everything is so religiously adhered to.
Yeah. No, but Sai Swarupa, as you said, Hinduism has so many layers. You just talked about the Panchakoshas. There are so many layers. For example, one of the beauties of Hinduism is that we are very accepting and inclusive of all things. So we are not, um, on the one hand, as you say, we have feasting and we have fasting. And the secrecy around rituals, I am part of a Sri Vidya, the Paddhati. That is, my mother is a Sri Vidya Upasaka. So I perform the japa of the Sri Vidya cult, as we call it.
Okay.
There
Which
is a lot of secrecy.
sampradaya, if I can ask?
So, there is this Upadesha that is given by your guru, and we
Okay,
start
okay.
with Ganapati and we start with Bala. There are mantras, and then you recite them, and you do the Navavarna Puja, which has all the Shodashopa Upachara that you talked about. And it is like most of our spiritual Hinduism, the aspects of mantras are guarded very secretly. You don't just give a mantra, you do
Yes.
an Upadesha, you have to get it from a person. It's an initiation. Same thing with food. Some temples will reveal, but I went to Jagannath Kshetra, where Jagannath ji of Puri, there I was not allowed into the kitchens. They said, first of all, women are not allowed here. First of all, the people who are the cooks are allowed here, but no outsider is. So the recipes are also guarded. But Jagannath, I discovered to my delight, is one of the most richest temples with respect to mythology, because you have the Vaishnava cult, you have the Shaivites, you have the Shakta cults, which is part of who I am, which is the goddess worshippers. So if you look at photos of the how it is cooked, there are so many aspects of yantras. So, for example, now there are 9 pots stacked one on top of each other. Nava is a very important number in my faith, and then it's cooked in mud
So
pots.
they pile
And
up these 9 pots one upon each other, and they just
yes,
exactly know how much water to keep so that
correct,
the fire will.
correct.
Sorry, I'm trying to. I'm interrupting you again and again.
No,
Sorry.
no, no. Please keep interrupting. Please add to the conversation. Um, so the easier to cook dishes are on top. The vegetables, the parupus or the pappus, the lentils go in the bottom, and then the anna in the middle. So they know, as you say. And then there is a yantra drawn on the base of these 9 pots that are stacked up. I didn't see this in the Jagannath Kshetra kitchens. I saw it in a museum, which said, okay, this is how it looks. And one commonality amongst all Naivedya is the way it is approached. So, what is the difference between delicious food that you eat in a restaurant and the delicious prasadams? In my view, the difference is the approach of the cook. The person in Jagannath Kshetra, for example, said, even if I think for 1 minute that I'm making these prasadams, even though I'm cutting all the vegetables, I'm cooking, whatever, the pots will shatter. We believe that Mahalakshmi is making the prasadam. And that is Jagannath ji's consort. We can hear her gaje, her anklets,
Wow.
as she walks through the kitchen. So this is the approach of Naivedya cooking, which is where you listen to Om chanting, where you think I am doing it as a vehicle for the God. It is not about my ego. Whereas if you eat delicious food in a restaurant kitchen, it's entirely about ego. It is, I am the chef. I am making this and you are my guest and you are dining on my food. Here we don't say my food, we say goddess's food or Jagannath's food. That is the difference. Where, you know, you literally, you subjugate your ego. Mm.
That's a wonderful observation too. Especially Puri is one of those unique kshetras where we just see traditions living, and just the whole of their like even the Rath Yatra when the Lord comes back. Lakshmi is already angry with him for staying back for so long at the Gundicha temple. So basically, she
Correct.
closes the door, when Lord Jagannath tries to enter, and then they have to placate her with that rasagola.
Yes.
Thing, right? And I guess you have elaborated about the Chapan Bhog and all in your Puri chapter. I remember very well. So thank you for that very insightful elaboration. So coming to the same subjugating one's ego, which comes along with subjugating one's desires, I guess, because desire and ambition, they are the core part of ego. Because when we say I, then the next logical thing is want. So, subjugating that desire comes with this abstinence, fasting, and you have very beautifully elaborated about the fasting and feasting cycles as, in your first chapter that deals with Udupi. This one, but maybe for the benefit of the viewers, you can elaborate on your take on the fasting and feasting these months.
Sure.
Whatever is.
I think all over India, when I went, I saw this whole the rituals that Indians follow with linked to fasting and feasting. So I'll begin with Rajasthan before coming to Udupi. A Rajput prince or a Rajput person I interviewed for another story on food of Rajasthan, the royal cuisine of Rajasthan. He said all of Rajasthan will not hunt, even though we are Rajputs, even though we eat meat. We won't hunt, we will not hunt during the monsoon because that is the time for the animals. The earth is fertile and it's the time for the deer or whoever the game meat that we hunt, we stop. So I think India as a civilization has an attachment and a balanced approach to nature, which is really why with such a large population, as a lover of forests, as a Vanavasi, as a lover of nature, we are, for such a country with so much population, we have so much nature left. We still have tigers, we still have a variety of flora and fauna and trees. So I think as a civilization, as Indians, we are lovers of nature. And coming to the prasadams, that too plays out because in everyday Indian life, my mother still, she will say today is Ekadashi, and she's 83 years old. But there was the whole ritual of fasting. Once a week, you do the. It is not just food fasting also. We have Mauna Vrata. So once a week, there are people who will not speak. So Vrata is a self control in a way. But one of the most elaborate things I learned was the Chaturmasya Vrata, which happens in Karnataka. I described it in the Karnataka chapter, but it happens in ashrams and when. When the guru, the bhat, the chief Swamijis, they would walk from ashram to ashram of their area. So what that is, and the beautiful thing for me was you didn't eat certain things in certain months. And correct me if I'm wrong, Sai Swarupa, I think it starts with giving up greens.
Yes,
and then
shaka and leafy greens and other vegetables in the month of Shravana.
Correct. And then it moves to you give up milk sweets in the next month.
Yep.
Yes, Bhadrapada. And then you do eat milk in the next month, which is I think when Gokulashtami happens and when we want to eat meat. And then you give up lentils during Navaratri, which anyway, Navratri, the most of our Naivedya at that time is rice based for the goddess. We give different chitrana.
Oh, you give up lentils because I thought Navratri Kolu, we prepare a lot of shundal during that.
Actually, we do in Tamil Nadu. But I think in Karnataka, which is
Okay.
the chapter I read in, chitrana is a
Sure, sure,
very
sure.
popular thing.
Yes, yes.
So, yeah. So
This
within three
whole,
states, there are regional variations of this. But the concept is the same, is that we now have all these detox weight loss diets, and they always start with give up lactose, give up milk, give up meat, of course. I'm a vegetarian, so I don't have to do that. But it's entirely about giving up. But we had that in our scriptures from a long time ago.
maybe
So,
because of that temporary phase of giving up, we would realize the value as well as the
yeah,
attachment level we have, and that
yeah.
sets us off on a contemplative path. Because this again reminds me about another incident in the Mahabharata. I'm so sorry, I'll keep going back to Mahabharata
Please,
because that is
please. That is your
passion.
forte.
So,
Uh-huh.
it's like during the Vanavasa, the Pandavas keep shuttling between two forests called one is Kamyaka, one is Dvaita. And of course, they do a trip to Himalayas also, which is a 5 year long. But otherwise, they keep shuttling between Kamyaka and Dvaita. And Dvaitavana is described as a place where it's totally clustered with ashramas that wherever you go, you'll hear a Veda mantra being chanted, that kind of a forest. And again, so there is a deer which comes into Yudhishthira's dream and says, now the deer population is so low because, you people have started helping the rishis and, hunting deer and all. So now I think you should go to Kamyaka so that we get time to multiply. So if the deer, the population of deer, it crosses a certain level, the green
Hmm.
cover is endangered because of their
Yes.
excessive this one. So hunting deer, because I was reminded of that when you mentioned the Rajput tradition.
Yes.
So when done in moderation, hunting deer is a noble task which helps the environment. But
Yes.
again, there is a place where
Balance.
yes, yes. So you abstain from it so that you don't do too much
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
Just reminded of that. So my next before I go to the next question about Kashi, my message to the viewers is that you could type in your questions or ask your questions in the chat box or in the Q&A. I'll be opening up the floor in another 15-20 minutes if provided I'm done with my questions. Take this opportunity, guys. So then, yes, Shobaji, you promised to talk about Kashi. That's again
Hmm.
very wonderful. It's just tough to ignore that whole experience while walking through Kashi. It's not just about the temples. It just feels all along the banks of Ganga. There's
Hmm.
something which you feel so connected to, and I am so impressed with your description about the Ganga, and
Hmm.
where you made the difference, made out the difference between impurity and dirt. And
Hmm.
Ganga
Hmm.
may be dirty, but she continues to be pure.
Hmm. Hmm.
If I can ask you to share your thoughts
Yeah,
about.
yeah. Pavitrata versus Gandagi. So
Yes.
Pavitram is pure, and Gandagi is dirt. So in the Indian mind, has the ability, like most sophisticated civilizations, in my view, to hold two contradictory thoughts in our head. We have the Irutalai Pakshi, the bird looking on both directions. That is there as part of our jewelry ornaments. And we call it Gandaberunda in
Rendaviru.
Karnataka. Yeah, it is the Mysore royal family has that as their padakams.
Yes.
But what does it mean? It means the ability to see two. You look at one thing and you see two contradictory thoughts. You have two contradictory thoughts. Ganga is pure and worthy of my worship, but she's also dirty, and that needs to be cleaned up. So Kashi, is there I will answer you, of course, but I'd love any Mahabharata connection to Kashi, Sai Swarupa, if you can add to it. I love Kashi. Who doesn't? It is the city of Shiva, and you literally do see, wherever you go, you see shivlings. The walking on the ghats of the Ganga is if you are afforded that luxury every day of your life, as Kashi Vasis are, what a blissful experience that is, to watch the sunrise over the Ganga or sunset. And the food, it depends on the temple. I mean, the problem with Kashi was choosing the prasadam, which is you have
with so many signature.
Correct. Not the Mahabharata, but the Ramayana. Your Hanuman had a Sankata Mochana Hanumanji temple there. Annapurna is a wonderful goddess because she is. We all say, no, Annapurne, Sadapurne, Shankara Prana Vallabe, Jnana Vairagya Siddhyartam Bhikshanjevi Cha Parvati. So she, my grandmother used to recite the sloka before cooking, because, and the Annapurna idol was kept on the, just above the gas, there was a ledge and you kept the image of the goddess. I think the story behind Shiva and Annapurna and how he comes as the Kashi is also Kapala Mochana, where Shiva, because he killed. So that is one story. The Shivlinga, the first Jyotirlinga was found in Kashi. That is another story. The story of Ganga herself is an amazing story. So our rich mythology, the fact that Shankara came to Kashi, the fact that there are so many mathas in Kashi. So you have so many layers of Hinduism all in one place. So that to me is the beauty of Kashi. And I'd love to hear any other connections that you may bring forth.
It's just, I mean, I guess I don't have much about Kashi, but yes, it's a very important Mahajanapada in, as far as Mahabharata is concerned. And as you mentioned in the book, it's the oldest city.
Yeah, correct. It is certainly the oldest living city in Asia, the oldest city in the world. There has been some discussion that it is in the Levant, which is the Fertile Crescent in the Nile and the Mesopotamian region. There are some of the older cities than Kashi.
Debate,
yes, that's a historian's debate. As far as we are concerned, though, in Kashi is the oldest continually living city in India. And what is beautiful about our civilization is that we have not cut off the link to our past. By which I mean, in India, what we call avatars. Avatars are literally gods cutting through the clouds and walking on the earth. We've had so many Krishna Avatara, Rama Avatara, all of that. Now, if you look at Western mythology, if you look at Greek mythology, Roman mythology, they also had that. They had Aphrodite, they had Apollo, the Roman, and then they had Zeus, the Greek god. All of them also cut through the clouds and came and walked on the earth. They had their mythology. But if you go to Greece today and Rome today, you don't see the gods on the streets like we do in India. You don't see the Ganapati at the street corner. At every time there's a 3-street corner, there's a Ganapati. So we have kept our mythological link to a very ancient time. The narrative arc of Indian mythology goes back very long. Whereas in Greece and Rome and most Western mythology, even Egypt, I would say, which has such a rich they had the sun god, the Ra, the Anubis. All of them, there comes a point when they decide we are going to become a modern civilization, fatak, it gets cut off. So you go to Egypt, Cairo today, you don't see the gods walking on the earth. Whereas in India, you see gods walking on the earth, by which I mean you see images, you see cows, you see snakes, So we live in this very wonderful mix of mythological time and real time. And that continues to this day. And you see it in Kashi, which is a long way of saying this is one of the reasons why Kashi is great.
I so much concur with you, Shobaji. So when you mentioned Greece, I was reminded of my another fortunate trip to Greece, Kriti, the island of Kriti, where there is the cave where Zeus was born, where they believe Zeus was born. And there's so much of the tapasya vibes around there. that
Uh-huh.
one can see it, and I almost felt guilty for wearing sandals, and there's nowhere to leave those, like and all along, even UK and Greece, I kept whenever they took us to some place of worship, I kept I would instinctively remove my shoes and then find others staring at me like.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's so again, coming back to food. So the common thread I have seen in most of the places, like you mentioned, Udupi, then again, yes, Horanadu and Kashi, and every place there is a emphasis on annadana. And
Mm,
you go to the temple, you receive the prasadam along with
yeah,
everybody. There is a deep sense of connect. You feel there is a
yeah,
collective connect. One feels with everybody else, just sitting along
correct.
with everyone, and there's that sense of equality. So, and that sense of oneness with the divine. So
Yes,
that brings me to the langar concept of Amritsar, because
yes,
that's again one of the important traditions, and that's
yes.
something which which all the temples also follow. Like say in Horanadu,
Mm,
they first tell us to go and eat before even having the darshan of the goddess, and
mm,
so the priest was, when we went, it was almost lunch time, and the
mm.
pujari said, you can't. He blocked our view, basically saying, "Ki, you cannot see the goddess. The goddess cannot see you coming empty stomach. You first go and eat, and then show yourself to the goddess." Right. So, is there that was there a common thread that you found beyond Hinduism, like say in the Sikhism, and you covered Ajmer Dargah also, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, yeah. That. Thank you for asking that. So yes, in the Sikh faith, Annadana is the primary way of devotion. You go. We have langars. Bangalore, where I live, we have a gurudwara where they still do langar. And if you go to Harmandir Sahib, which we
Mm.
call the Golden Temple, there too langar is enormous, and it has that same quality that you just described, which is you go into the langar kitchen and people are chanting, people are listening to devotional music. Already a peace and calm settles over you. And I, like a stupid person, went and said, I'll go roll out rotis. And I am a South Indian. I'm a Tamilian. We eat rice
Rice more
predominantly.
than
I don't know how to make good chapati. So, but I went and volunteered anyway. And these Punjabi women very kindly made me sit next to them and taught me how to do it properly. But it was a mixture. What was there is the whole egalitarianism. We didn't know who was sitting next to you, whether they were rich or poor, which state they come from, which country they come from. A lot of foreigners too, and so you come together as a human, as humanity, and you feed humanity. And that to me is the epitome of Annadana, where you're not bothered about who eats it or anything like that. So that is that. In Ajmer, of course, the Dargah of Ajmer is a Sufi Dargah. And Sufism is different from Islam because it is more sensuous. It adapts all the music and the dance and the arts into itself. It is an interiorization and an intensification of the faith. So I went there. There was a Qawwali group that was singing, and they had tears rolling down their eyes as they sang. And then Sufism also, I was reminded, I don't know if you've been to Turkey, Sai Swarupa, if you go to a place called Konya, the whirling dervishes with one hand up to the sky, one hand down to the earth, and
yes,
they
yes.
whirl around with these
Ah.
huge pavades, as we call, which look like pavades. So there's that. But the Ajmer Dargah is also Ganga Jamuna Sanskriti, as they call it, where Hindus are welcome and Muslims are welcome. And equal measure, people go in and they give their little prayers and ask for what they want. And one of the most touching things in every temple I visited was, you see, somebody would have put a cradle there. Oh, and I'll think, oh, some family wants a child. Somebody would have put money there and they will want a promotion. Somebody would have built a wooden house and put it there. And so maybe they are building a house and they want the god to give them the funds for it. So all our hopes and dreams are captured in these offerings that we give to God and ask for things that we need in return. Ajmer's story is linked to the Mughals. So Akbar, after winning the Battle of Chittorgarh, he walked and he created this Badi Deg, as they call it, for Kesariya Bath. Kesariya Bath is somewhat like our Shira, or we call it the Kesari Bath. And that is given as a prasad. And it's made in these huge pots. I mean, like 10 people can sit inside it. And so that's the story of Ajmer. I think the link to the Mughals is one of the very common or unusual things about it. And as far as the Golden Temple, the veneration of that book, the veneration of humanity, is a wonderful thing.
Sure. Thank you. Because it's tough to gain an insight about the variety, especially India follows. I think that's the tradition which I don't think even many Islamic countries would be following. Whatever is followed in India.
Correct.
So that's that comes and so that. I think I should give a chance to the audience now. There is a question. The person remains anonymous. He says, firstly, thank you for such an insightful session. I was wondering if in any of your travels, you have found non-vegetarian prasadam being served in temples.
Yeah. If you go to West Bengal and beyond, in that belt, in Nepal, I have seen goats being sacrificed. I think that sacrificing animals was part of our land, especially when we were an agricultural people. I could be wrong. Like I said, I'm not a scholar, but I think the whole homam that we practice, that we have, began with in our mythological stories of people jumping in, they sacrifice themselves. And yes. Then, okay, you don't want to sacrifice.
Being a worshipper of Lalita Parameshwari, I think the goddess, the whole Chitaknikunda Sambhuta happened because the gods themselves, sacrificed themselves.
Correct.
The goddess to
correct. So yes, I have seen non-vegetarian prasadams in the form of sacrificial animals. Yes, I have.
That reminds me, you promised to talk about Patan and
Lalitapura. Yes, yeah. So I mean, I know, like you just said, parts of the Lalita Sahasranama. I was made to learn it and by heart it as a child. So I do know the Lalita stories of the Lalita Sahasranama. And part of the reason I like Lalita is because she is Lalita because she plays. She's a playful goddess. And in Patan, she is worshipped in the form of the Dashamahavidyas by these men. And they come very royally, dressed in multiple colors, and sit as like gods. They sit exactly like how I'm sitting. They take up space. Their legs are far apart, and then the family by family, whoever wants to worship goes and offers the prasadams, and it is a mixture of foods. Some of them offer meat as well. And it's rice. It's the usual things that we see in India. It's the rice, the vegetables, the sweets. And then after that, it's distributed to the whole, whoever has gathered there. And the whole city comes together in a way. And it was wonderful. It happened at night, so it was cool. It had music and dance and chanting. It had rituals. It had color. It had nice smells of freshly cooked food. So it had all the elements, and it had a community coming together, which is a purpose, I think. Religion, I think, was invented to bring the community together. So Lalita Patan was very special to me.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for that. It's somewhat, that's again an all in, pan-Indian or pan-subcontinent custom of males taking the female avesha, like you talked about Patan, and we have that down in Kerala and even in Tulunadu's, the Bhutakola or something they call, where female
Yes.
Bhuta is also, the Avisha is somewhere we are, so deeply connected beyond the political borders. I guess the political borders keep changing, but the
Yes.
civilization, it continues to trudge on. So, and, maybe people are skeptical of that, and we have a skeptical question to Shobhaji. It's from Mohit Pandey.
Hmm.
Uh, he has some doubts about the hygiene and this one, the maintained and the food preparation. He says, doesn't the lack of hygiene and dirt spoil the sanctity of mythology associated with food, especially in Kashi and Puri? Hope your book is a critical essay looking at the pros and cons of the preparation of faith food. I know you have specified how strictly they hold the puri recipes, but maybe you'd
Hmm.
go
Yeah.
into.
So, Mohitji, what I would say is that I have not visited the kitchens in Jagannath Kshetra, but I have seen the Ambalapura Palpayasam made, and the hygiene is very, I mean, it's a beautiful room. There is literally no other vessel there except a huge urali, and they pour it all the rice, and it's cooked and cooked and cooked. So the assumption is that by cooking it for 5 hours, all the germs are gone. And I know that all of us are very conscious of this in a time of COVID like this.
Yeah.
As far as the Udupi too, because the food is the anna is cooked, the saru is cooked, the palya is cooked, and then yes, you do sit on the floor. Yes, you don't know if the banana leaves that you eat on are washed properly or not.
Yeah.
But the hope is that how much will you protect yourself from viruses? Sometimes you have to surrender to God and hope for the best. And it's true of restaurants as well. So I don't think I will just specify or choose Indian temples as lack of hygiene. I would say that hygiene is a concept that should be applied everywhere. And let us not single out Indian temples for being. Kashi is dirty, and I think the Ganga, the banks of the Ganga are dirty. I will give you that. I
Yeah,
think
but
everybody
I
knows
guess
that.
you have elaborated about that Prashchita Tattva, where
Hmm.
there are, there's a whole shloka about how not to behave with the Ganga, and we have somehow
And
flouted everything
everything,
there,
yes.
right? And maybe because many people don't know about this particular shloka, Shobhaji, so we
Yeah,
do have some time, and I'd be so happy if you can elaborate so that
yeah.
people turn conscious, at least
Yes,
when we.
yes. So the shloka that Sai Swarupa is talking about lists out a whole range of things that you should not do to the Ganga, including gargling and spitting, including throwing flowers into the Ganga, including obviously urinating, including throwing earwax into the Ganga. So this was written for an Indian of a few centuries before. So it is a very detailed and specific list of things that you don't do. And nowadays, the way you venerate the Ganga is by putting these candles, sending the flowers. As Sai Swarupa said, we are flouting every one of them. But I was heartened because I met a Mahant. He's the Mahant of an ashram called in Harihar, in Haridwar. His name is Swami Avdeshananda, and he basically said, I don't throw flowers into the Ganga. I worship trees. He actually did an evening puja for the Rudraksh tree. So he's a big deal in North India. He has countless followers. He has a huge ashram, and he is one of the Mahants who comes during the Kumbh Mela as one of the leaders. So I went to interview him, and we were a lot of journalists. There were film crews, TV, etc., etc. After in the middle of the interview, he said it was evening. It was Sandhya, the Sandhya Kal, and he said, "Just give me a minute." He walked to the Rudraksh tree, and we call it tree hugging nowadays in modern parliament, but literally he held the tree, he bowed to the tree, and he prayed, and he said his prayers and did a little bit of abhisheka. And he said, when you worship nature like this, you will treat the Ganga in a much more special way. So I think the desire of our ancestors, the desire that comes across in all the slokas is that let's be gentle with this earth. but we are not doing that as a species. And it's not just India. As a species, we are not doing that.
Yeah, especially when I think about our construction. Again, I'm
Yeah,
digressing from the topic, but in hot places we have these glass buildings. In so tropical places, the glass buildings with air condition instead of, like, in
yeah,
15th century Vijayanagara kings have showed us to how to build naturally air conditioned buildings, but we've left that, and we are falling for that, the silicon aspect of Silicon Valley, which doesn't really belong to India.
to
That's
India. Absolutely.
that's something, I guess. And Shobaji has in fact elaborated that whole shloka of Parayashchitta Tattva in her Kashi chapter. So I would urge not just Mohitji but everybody to go through, and it's so necessary for us to know what we want to follow firstly,
Hmm.
before
Hmm.
blindly defending or blindly criticizing. It's necessary to know what our own shastras and our own ancestors have given, the knowledge that
Correct.
they have given us, and then evaluate it. We just find out that we are just not following anything that they have told us to follow, and then
Correct.
then there is this whole insensitive blaming of Hinduism that goes on. So do please, for that one reason, also I would urge you all to read Food and Faith. It's been so soulfully covered. So that brings me to the final question, is about how has your because you have confessed to being a skeptical seeker, right? And how did you find changing the change in yourself during this whole journey, Shobhaji? Was
Yeah.
there change, or because I know that every visit to every kshetra has some impact, and
Yes.
then you have just covered pretty much the
Yeah.
whole subcontinent here.
No, Sai Swarupa, I think that the faith gives you many benefits. It has been well documented. Religious people have better marriages, they have better health, all that is there. But that is all a very rational approach, a
Mm,
very scientific approach. It's studies, all these studies show this thing is good. I want to achieve the transcendence that faith gives, and I'm not there yet. I see it when I see my mother. I see how they are able to forget themselves and they are able to believe in a higher power that is taking care of them, that it gives them so much solace when times are tough. I want to be able to have that strong belief instead of just appreciating from a very rational mind that prasadam is tasty, the mythology is so good, the Sanskrit mantras in this chandas are so nice to listen to. This is all the rational mind. For me, for the transcendence where you forget yourself and you sort of the aikyam that you become one, you
mm,
have to get into the emotional mind. You have to go deeper. And I'm just, again, I'm still here. I have to go much deeper. But I would like to. I think it would be really good. So I'm speaking to you from California. And here, one of the latest trends is that cannabis is legal. Cannabis, which again, our ancients used to have as ganja. So they
yes.
are taking weed and recreational drugs in order to affect mind changes in their mind, to access their creativity, and the government has legalized all of it. So here in California, people are doing that. They are taking smoking and having this edible cannabis in order to access spiritual or religious or creative power. We have ways of doing that maybe involved cannabis but also didn't. Many faiths are a way to achieve that transcendence without intaking anything. So that to me is a wonderful thing. If I can access that religious transcendence which is, I think, the source of creativity, which is the source of happiness. And I'm not there yet.
I guess you're just being too humble. I could see being a Sri Vidya Upasaka, and the way you have so soulfully documented the whole experience. At least I am sure you'll reach there, and so will all of us, I hope. So thank you so much, Shobaji. If we don't have any more questions, we should be thanking her, and thanks again for gracing us so early in the morning for you.
Yes,
So,
no, no
busy
problem.
day,
You can go have your dinner. I'll go have my coffee.
great. Okay, okay.
But thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much. So please buy your copies of Food and Faith. I know the book will make you hungry. That's what is happening to me. And yes, there's so much of knowledge. The hunger for knowledge is also quenched by reading such a beautifully and soulfully and honestly written book. So all the best, Shobaji. And I am also happy to announce that Indic Book Club, Indic Academy, we have acquired some copies of Shobhaji's book for our book reviewers, 1,000 reviewers club initiative. So you would see a lot of interest being expressed on the book, as well as some reviews coming up. And I hope it helps spread the word on such a wonderful book. And all the best for your next book, Shobhaji. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.